This is going to be cool because it's going to be a real eye-opener for hobbyists. A lot of people don't know about, what else we do for global aquaculture.
Hi, Chad. Welcome. And why don't we start off by you telling me a little bit about Reed Mariculture?
Well, it's great that you're having me on in this video. I really appreciate it, Kelly. I'm sitting here in my office at the farm in California, in Campbell, California. And it's a pleasure to be here and talk with your viewers. So for all of you that are tuning in, I appreciate it. So again, my name is Chad Clayton. I'm the live feed supervisor for Reed Mariculture. I've been with RMI for about 9 years now. My career has been focused mainly on marine biology and aquaculture. I went to college down in Florida Tech back in the 90s and decided to stick with aquaculture because it was an up-and-coming profession and I saw a lot of value in it, especially with marine ornamentals, clownfish specifically. So I decided to leave college, go get experience as much as I could, working with the Department of Fisheries in Indiana, doing lakes and rivers and stream surveying, doing electrofishing, which was really cool. I worked in a laboratory doing molecular biology and aquaculture at Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis. So I learned in vitro fertilization techniques. It was cool because we were literally stripping the eggs and the sperm out of the females and males, fertilizing them in petri dishes, and then literally growing them in beakers. So that was like my real first experience with breeding fish on a very high level. And then I was working in St. Louis. I was trying to get down to Florida to work for ORA because they were a big clownfish hatchery at the time, still are, and I really wanted to get down there and get some more experience with marine ornamentals. So I spoke with them, did some interviewing, went down there, and I got hired. And so I worked there for about 4 years and learned a lot. I got a lot of species under my belt. I bred a number of clownfish and dottybacks and cardinals. Even started working with seahorses down there, which was really fun. Really enjoyed working.
Well, now that's cool.
I really enjoyed working with the Bori seahorses. Those were my favorite. And then I had an opportunity of a lifetime to go out to Hawaii and grow fish at an inland hatchery, and they had an offshore cages for grow out. And so I left everything behind and moved to Hawaii, and having never been there before in my life. So it was really cool. A lot of experience with larval rearing, breeding. We had brood stocks. We were collecting eggs. We were hatching eggs, and this is where I really got a good experience with copepods, and to lead me into what we're going to talk about today. So that was in 2006. So for a couple of years, I was out in Hawaii, learned a lot about copepods, and then things changed. I met my future wife. She's from California, so decided to leave the island and move to California to really settle down and put an end to my gypsy aquaculture career, so to speak, because I was literally drifting around from job to job, just gaining experience and trying to figure out where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do in the future, which is the case with most of us. I was very happy to move to California, and I remembered that Reed Mariculture was in the area, and so I called them up, sent in my resume, and after a few pretty intense interviews with the Reed family, I got in and haven't looked back. And so they brought me in to really refine the protocols and techniques with the Tigger pods, which is our top seller. This is one of the most popular copepods in the reef aquarium hobby, Tigriopus californicus. These animals are found from Alaska all the way down to the Baja Peninsula in Mexico. They have a huge range, so it was really fun to try to really refine the protocols, figure out what makes these animals tick, with a lot of observation, a lot of different techniques and experimentation. With aquaculture, you want to make small changes over time. You don't want to change a lot of things. You want to change one thing at a time to figure out what works. And recently, within the past 3 or 4 years, we've really nailed down our protocols with Tigriopus californicus, and we're producing a lot of them. Actually, we're overproducing them, and so seasonally we come out with a product that's Tigger Feast. That's they're concentrated Tigger pods, and so that kind of segued into more copepod species, so that we could culture more copepods for other facilities that maybe needed a pelagic copepod with a small monopoly or a copepod that's non-viable algae, things like that. So those are things that I'm continuing to work on here while I'm also doing the social media. I go to a lot of trade shows. I do presentations on a number of different topics. It's really cool to talk about global aquaculture with hobbyists because there's a lot of overlap what people are doing in global aquaculture as well as marine ornamental aquaculture for the hobby. And so it's really cool to be a part of literally both worlds. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now, and the future is, more live feeds research, and refining techniques and protocols, and helping people succeed better than they ever have. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
They made a very good decision hiring you, because I've personally seen you at MACNA, at MBI, at all of so many different types of the shows and stuff, and you're always so energetic and ready to talk to anybody and explain, and you're very understanding of the fact that hobbyists or newcomers or whatever, however you want to say it, might not know as much as someone else that you speak to. So you're very, very good at making sure that I understand what you're saying. So I appreciate that. With Reed, you just explained exactly what you are doing and your progression through it. What would you say is their main focus? Is there any specific goal of the company?
So yeah, I can tell you a little bit about the history of the company, why we came to be a million-gallon phytoplankton, zooplankton farm. So a little bit of history will help. So in 1995, Tim Reed, the owner of the company, who still is the CEO and actually works in our algae culture, he wanted to grow oysters. And to grow oysters in an inland facility that's a biosecure, far from the ocean, no disease, no viruses, nothing like that, all controlled. He wanted to grow oysters, and to do that, to hatch oysters and grow the larvae, you have to feed them phytoplankton. There's really nothing else that substitutes phytoplankton, whether it's alive, non-viable. And so he got really good at growing the algae, and some oyster growers in California said, well, why don't you find a way to concentrate the algae, a way to freeze it, refrigerate it for long-term storage, and sell that to shellfish growers. And so the light went off in Tim's head, and ever since then we've been working at expanding our facility, growing as many different species of marine phytoplankton as possible. And so the species that we choose are the same ones that are being used in global aquaculture, the ones that people have already had success with. They've put things in research papers, peer-reviewed papers have talked about these things, whether it's diatoms or other species of algae. So we only work with the species and strains that are being used in aquaculture. And so that way, when somebody says, I've got oysters and I want to feed them isochrysis or pavlova, we have exactly what they need, because the nutritional profile is very important to these people. And then each individual species of phytoplankton has its own nutritional profile. And so we sell single species products to people that have very specific needs. And we also sell blends of algae, which is very important. We found that when you blend species of algae and offer it to your animals, it's way better for them, because some species lack certain things. So for instance, Nanochloropsis, which is a very easy algae to grow. It's one of the main ones that we grow. And a lot of your viewers have probably grown this in 2-liter bottles or whatever. And so we grow a lot of that, and that is the basis of a lot of our feeds. But Nanochloropsis lacks DHA. DHA is an omega fatty acid that's essential for larval development and other things that must come from the diet for those animals. And so to make up for that, we add other species of algae to these blends. And so all the species complement each other. And so we have actually become a source of supplementation or complete replacement for hatcheries. So we have, let's say, an oyster hatchery doesn't want to grow algae, or they can't grow the right species, or they have seasonality issues, or they have continuous crashes. They can call on us, because we relieve the bottleneck for them. They can use our products as a supplement for their animals, or they can replace 100%. We have hatcheries, we have a clam hatchery that's replaced completely all of their live algae. They got rid of all of it. And they buy from us, and all they need is a freezer and a refrigerator at their facility. They don't need to set up giant rooms to grow algae, spend a lot of money on electricity if they're in an area where they can't use the sun, or if they're not in a greenhouse. Control crashes, you have to have dedicated staff. It's very expensive. The algae can become contaminated. It's quite literally every day of the week, every week in the year, you have to be on top of it. Algae doesn't take holidays. It doesn't care if you're sick, and it doesn't take weekends. You have to be there for it. And so there's a lot of people that do want to deal with that hassle, especially people that need to grow a lot of phytoplankton. We're talking warehouses full of phytoplankton culture. And to eliminate half of that or all of that is huge for those people. They can put that cost into other things, that money that's saving. And so that's kind of the bottleneck we relieve leave that bottleneck in global aquaculture. Because the cool thing about our products is it can be refrigerated or frozen for long-term storage, and we ship it all over the globe. If there's a country that can receive it, and we the importation permits in line, we do vet certification, we have all of our algae tested, and so if we jump through all those hoops and everything's good, then we can get our algae into those other countries. And so it's really cool to not just be a part of the domestic aquaculture, but global aquaculture as well.
Thank you to Chad for sharing his journey, and thank you all for watching. Please stay tuned. I'll be uploading parts 2 and 3 of the RMI interview that will be covering Chad's tips, some culturing information, and a closer look at all of the RMI products and processes.